Hi, my name is George, and I am a software engineer, right? Um, this video series is an exercise for me to try and build a game that me and my friends play a lot. It's called Boomerang Fu. It is also an exercise for me to pick up a new skill. So, with the advent of LLMs and AI that helps you write code, I have to admit that I am someone who did not adjust to this new paradigm all that well. I am not able to leverage LLMs the way other people have been able to. And so this is also going to be an exercise to learn how to do that in whatever way I can, right? So I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to try and teach myself how to uh, write software using your Claude code. So Claude code is what I'm going to be using for that. And I'm going to try and build this game that me and my friends play a lot, right? Um, Now you might be asking, why am I going to try and create a game that already exists and that me and my friends already played? So the game is called Boomerang Fu. Maybe some of you have heard about it. It is a very entertaining game with only one downside to it. You cannot play it online. You have to play it on a single system. All of you have to be on the same system and play it, right? So we play Boomerang Fu on my PS5, and we connect four controllers to it, and the four of us can play it, right? Now, this limits us severely because we have to be in the same room to be able to do this, right? We can't play online from the comfort of our individual homes. So my project is going to be an attempt to recreate this game from scratch uh, with online multiplayer. Okay, so I'm going to insert a clip of the game here so that you can see the kind of game I'm trying to uh, build, and we'll proceed from there. Okay, so let's open up my editor of choice. I've started getting into Rust a little bit. I've already written one project on in Rust, and I wanted to build on that knowledge of Rust that I already had. So I started Googling, trying to figure out what uh, game engines are there in Rust that I can write my entire game as code rather than using a visual game engine like Unity or Unreal Engine or Godot, things of that nature, right? I wanted to see if I could write an entirely in code myself because that's what I'm familiar with, right? So the little bit of Googling that I did came uh, brought me to the conclusion that there is a game engine called Bevy and uh, accompanying rendering library, no, a physics engine called Avian. So we're going to try and use those two libraries in Rust to try and build this game, right? So let's get started. Wait, I'm haven't opened up the folder. Okay. Um, projects. Yes. Okay, and we are in. So I don't want to use the. I think it's GitHub Copilot that comes with VS Code. I have a good. I think I have the $100 subscription for Claude Code, so I'm going to use that. Set me up, set this folder up as a Rust project with uh, using the Webby and avian libraries to build a game. Plan mode, sure. And off we go, off to the races.
It's nesty, lemon stick mix with water.
I want this to be a 3D game, bare minimum. The reason I want to do bare minimum is um, so this is actually my second attempt at doing this game. In my first attempt, I tried to vibe code this project too much, uh, and it took the joy out of it because I wasn't writing anything by myself, and I guess I enjoy doing that a little bit. So when I was just prompting the LLM to do things and just watching it go on its way was not enjoyable. So I decided that I will try to use the LLM in a less vibey way and still be doing a bunch of the work myself to have this experience still be enjoyable at the end of the day. So, which is why I'm making it do bare minimum and not do any player movement or physics demo because um, I want to be doing a bunch of this by myself. And the other thing is that when I made it do too much by itself, at the end of the attempt, I was very clueless on what it had done and how it was working. So I don't want that happening this time either. So I'm going to try and make the LLM do as little as possible while still being vibe coded. Yeah.
This is a great answer. So I'm not going to try and be too vloggy about this. I'm not going to make small talk with the camera for the sake of small talk, right? Because that's not something that I'm used to. I'm not sure if that is something that I would like to do either. So what I will do is I will go about doing this project as I would normally do any project. And I will just speed through the bits where I am staring at my screen waiting for the LLM to be done doing whatever it needs to do. Right. Maybe later we'll go in a direction where I am making small talk to the camera and maybe spice things up a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Let's read this plan. Set up Fu as a Roscoe's Berry plus Avian 3D for game project context. Folder. The goal is to bootstrap the working using Avian 3D. Decision confirmed it has to be a 3D game. Use Avian 3D. Toolchain is already present. Version compatibility. So cargo.toml with the Debian Avian 3D dependencies and src.name that sets up app new with Avian's physics plugin, default physics plugin. Setup system on startup that spawns the camera and a transform pointed to the origin. The directional light. Ground static body that is Richard and Collider cuboid plus a plain launchpad mesh 3D. I guess a rigid body and a collider and the mesh 3D are put together. I don't know. Okay. Falling body, rigid plus rigid dynamic, collider cuboid, spawned a few units above the ground, gravity, medium default, pulls it down. API notes use component style spawning with required components. Okay. 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 Standard ROSC techno slash target, verification. Okay. Yes and auto accept. So it's 11:58. I have to wake up at 5 tomorrow morning. 4 hours of sleep should be fine. So I'll do this till 1. Then we'll call it a night. Hey, sorry, we're back. My headphone ran out of charge and and Claude took a while to run the build. So it's done trying to run the build and it's wanting me to continue. I'm going to try and debug this bit by myself because I ran into this the last time I did this. And oh no, wait, that's no issue. Okay, never mind.
Hey, it worked. Okay, so this is the same thing that it set up the last time I told it to set up the project for me. It spawned the platform and a box, and it closed it, and it oh, okay, it set up a timeout so that we just close our flow. Okay,
Hmm, it's logging some things, even though there is nothing to log. Oh no, wait, there is. I remember there are some log statements that show up. If I'm not mistaken. Where did I log it to? Slash temp slash. Okay, 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 okay. It has now set up the project for me, and it has spawned a platform and a cube over it. So far, so good. I have to say. So far, so good. Okay, so this is the whole point of me wanting to do this, so that I can automate a lot of the boilerplate. Because reading through the docs and understanding that I need to do these basic things would probably have taken me maybe twice the amount that this took me. Doing this took me. It took me about 10ish minutes to do this with Claude. It would maybe taken me 20 to 30 minutes to get this set up. Maybe. Okay.
let's see. So what I do want it to do from the get-go is I want it to create very separate layers for this project. I wanted to set up a game server layer. I wanted to set up a game client layer, and I wanted to set up like an app layer, right? This is one of the approaches that I did take in the initial attempt of this project, but it was after I had set up a bunch of the game in itself, where you have characters moving around, swinging their knives or boomerangs at each other and being able to kill them. Right? So I'm going to try and do the same thing, but in a different order. I'm going to do the layering of it first before I uh, move on to the actual actions of the game. Right? Um, Maybe I will do one action without the layering, which would be player movement. So then I can use that as a uh, basis for the actual layering, right? So how it will work is the client will detect the movement, communicate back to the server, and the server will decide whether that should be honored or not and inform the client of the same, right? Again, I want to do this in a layered perspective because I want this to be an online game, right? And so if it's going to be online, it's going to be over a network, it needs to follow a server client model. So I won't have a game server, I won't have a game client, right? But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a component to describe the player, right? Um, Create a component to describe the player that contains a player ID, weight, value, and associate the cube that you have created with that player component. Right. So before I enter this prompt in, and we have the Claude going off and doing its thing again, let's review what Claude did do so far, right? So it set up the dependencies of the project. So it said that it wants 0.18 of Bevy and zero point 0.6 of Avian because it looked it up on the internet or it had it in its network already, that these two versions were compatible with each other, right? The second thing it did was it using these dependencies that it defined in the cargo file, it set up a very minimal project. So what it does is it spawns an instance of the Bevy app, I guess. Not, I think it's a Bevy app and not like an avian app. Yeah, it spawns an instance of the Bevy app. It adds the default set of plugins. I don't know what those default plugins in Bevy are. It adds the default physics engine from Avian and it adds a system. So I'm not exactly sure what a system is. I think a system is a handler that runs on a certain event, right? That is my understanding of a system so far. Maybe it's different and we'll figure that out as time goes on. But as far as my understanding is, a system is an event handler. So the event that it is handling at the moment is app startup, and on app startup, it's runs the setup function. So in the setup function, it gets commands. I'm guessing commands is what you is an instance of the something in the app that lets you manipulate the app, right? Meshes and materials, I don't know what they are. Uh, I don't know what they are in terms of game design. It might be something we'll have to Google and learn, right? But what it does right now is using that commands that lets you manipulate the app. It spawns a camera looking at the origin. Uh, it spawns global lighting, okay, that starts from this point 484 and looks at the origin. Yes. Then it spawns the flat plane ground that we saw earlier, and then it spawns the cuboid. That is the thing that falls from the top and onto the platform, right? Okay, so that's what it's done so far. We wanted to associate, we wanted to create a component called player.
So Devi follows this concept called entity component system. It is an alternative approach to programming that is different from object-oriented programming or functional programming, right? Um, Wherein in object-oriented programming, you store the attributes of an object together to encapsulate it into an object, right? And that object contains all of its attributes. Uh, Entity component system bunches up the same attributes of different components together. I think that's how it works. So then I think the reasoning behind that is when you do want to manipulate a certain attribute of an entity, you are more often you're more often mutating that attribute of the entity in relation to that same attribute of other entities or components, right? So it bunches those attributes together for performance rather than uh, bunching up different attributes of the same entity into a single object. It bunches up the same attribute of different entities together. Yeah. Okay. So this I sort of already know. I think the term for the attribute that I'm referring to, or the attribute of an object in object-oriented programming, is referred to as the component of an entity in the ECS system, so the entity component system.
So I wanted to create a sort of a player ID component. So I'm saying create a component to describe the player that contains a player ID U8 type and associate the cube that you've created with that player component. I've just write out what I wrote. I don't know if that made sense or not. So this object that it spawns is the player. So I wanted to create yet another component that can hold the player ID of this player. And the player here is the entity, I guess. Okay. I don't want it to edit automatically. I always wanted to plan first. I'll just go get some water.
Hi, I'm back. Okay, it's done planning. The project Fu is working with the okay, but sometimes. Yes, so now it will define a struct, and that struct is going to be indicated to be a component. Right, that's what it's doing here. Okay, I've also just realized that my VS Code's font is a little too small for the resolution at which I'm recording this at. So I'm going to do everyone a favor. I'm going to make it a little larger, right? We're going to do this. Maybe it doesn't need to be quite that large. Maybe it can just be that. This is not too bad, right? I'll have to watch this back later to figure out if I need to make it larger or smaller. Okay, it's not doing anything too complicated. It's just creating the player component. Yes, and not accept. Okay. Another thing that I'm realizing is that in my first attempt to do this, I was a lot more talkative during the recording, and I feel like that was more entertaining. I don't know if it would be more entertaining for somebody else watching this, but it definitely made it a little bit more entertaining so that for me, because I was talking and I pictured myself talking to somebody else on the other side of this camera, right? And I think watching it back also, I think that was interesting to listen to. So I'll talk a little bit while I do this, because it will keep me sane, because it will feel like I'm actually talking to somebody and not just recording myself in a weird way of software. I'm not going to say the word because it's not. I'm yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to cut that bit out. Yeah, so I have the player ID against it now. The next thing I'm going to do is add input keyboard input system that will detect the keys WASD and S and D and move the player along the ground accordingly. I'm burping a lot. So again, keyboard input system event handler in a sense. I'm going to attach an event handler that detects the keyboard input events. I have read everything I need. This is focus changed to a file I know well. Let me write the plan. Interesting. I wonder how they trained these LLMs to speak like a software engineer a little bit. I mean, I can't really say software engineers because software engineers don't say things like, I have everything I need. This is a focus change to a file I know well. Let me write the plan. Software engineers don't talk like that. But how did they train the LLM to sort of think through token prediction? Why did it go ahead and say all of this rather than just do all of it? Right? Yeah. Like in the sense, why did it say the things, hey, I have everything I need and this is a focus change to a no file I know well, as opposed to just writing out the plan, right? Was there somebody that was training this by just pretending to be what the LLM ought to be and feeding that whole conversation back to the LLM so that it could pick up on that style of token prediction? I don't know if somebody out there knows how they do this. I'd love to know. Okay. Plan WSD movement for the player keyboard. Register an update system move player. Yes. It reads button input keyboard. Yes. And queries the linear velocity. Yes. Sets the horizontal velocity components while preserving vertical velocity. So gravity/landing still work. Correct approach to an alien dynamic body rather than fighting it via transform. Okay, interesting. I don't understand what that means. Okay. But this is sort of what it did last time, right? It updated the linear velocity. We will have to change this a little bit, but we'll come to that later, right? So yes and auto accept. Slide the. Okay. Sure. I think I should try and get it to forego doing the cargo build each time it wants to check if it's working. Because cargo build is probably going to start taking more and more time as this project gets larger and larger. It might make more sense to have it use the Rust analyzer either by calling the Rust analyzer command by itself or by getting it to use the language server, the Rust language server, which is just a wrapper on Rust analyzer. Or the even easier thing to do would be use the existing running language server that VS Code is using and just checking to see if there's a way for Claude to check if VS Code in itself is reporting any errors, right? Because VS Code does that down here. Okay, you can't see it right here, but I will move this out of the way, right? So VS Code over here informs me of the errors in my system, and that's using the Rust language server, which is built on Rust analyzer, right? So maybe it can just try and leverage that. and not spend so much time trying to build it. Okay, let's see if it managed to do what we wanted it to. Right? One second. Yeah. Okay. So, and we're moving around, we're moving around, we're moving around, we're moving around, we're moving around.
Okay, now that we have a very basic function set up and working, I am going to now use this basic functionality that we have added to the character to build out the server, the game server layer and the game client layer, and use this action that we're using, that we have built out to make sure that our layers are working correctly.
So we're going to do two things at the same time. We're going to, dropping a lot, sorry. We're going to get it to write the modules for us. Create server module, client module, and an app module. In the server module, define enums server events and client with the variance keypress, or should we keypress, or with the variance movements in each of them. Variance movement in each of them. In the respective modules. Just the two months. Okay. While it does that, we will write cloud cloud.md5. And in this cloud, I'm saying cloud because I want to prime engineer. He says cloud instead of cloud, and I think that's fine. So we're going to write a cloud.md5, and we're going to explain to it that we want it to always be in this sort of architecture. Should we say rules for building the game? Project structure. Sure. I'm going to try and write this as a normal readme file, and hopefully that will be enough for Claude to sort of write things out the way I wanted to. I'm sure we'll have to change things as we notice Claude not do sort of things the way we wanted to. And so then it will go from being a readme to being a proper Claude.md file. But yeah, that is something that we will have to do as time goes on. This time I did not put it on the plan, but I forgot. I need to set the default with the plan mode. Okay. This module should contain the code for managing the application, such as the application state and settings. Client. This module should contain the code for managing the game entities, detecting events, and updating the game state on screen. So this module should contain the code to manage the game state, such as rope, player attributes, such as score, player state, and such as score and player state. Game general spawn app, spawn app, spawn game server, spawn game client, attach game client to server, start game at server, capture player events at client and send to server, process player events at server and determine game events and send to client, process game events at client and update game UI. So I don't know if this is a good setup for a plotted MD5, but we'll see. It has created the events. So it did the server event here and it did the client event here. I actually wanted to have the client event be in the server module because this is essentially going to be like an API contract, and the API contract is always dictated by the server and not the client. So, and the client conforms to the contract described by the server. So the client is just going to depend on the server module for all of that, right? Okay, where is my developer? Create a game server struct that contains a vector of.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that I need to figure out. I need the game server to have uh, client game event senders. So then, uh, okay. So I'm going to be using some sort of channel to communicate between the server and client. Now, for our initial setup, that is just going to be a Rust multiple producer, single consumer channel, and it's going to be entirely software based, right? Once we have that working, we will set up other kinds of channels, primarily a network channel. So this could be HTTP client, it could be a TCP socket, it could be a UDP socket, right? Um, so the base interface for the game server and the game client to communicate to each other is going to be the Rust MPSC channel. So I need to be able to spawn a game server and then attach senders for the game server to send game events to the client. So ideally, every time we create a client, it should create a game event sender and a game event receiver. The client will hold on to the game event receiver and attach the game event sender to the game server. Now, what this does is now whenever the game server decides that it wants to send a game event to the client, it will use the attached sender to send that game event, and the corresponding game events receiver that was created along with it and is held on to by the client can receive that game event and process it. That's a very long sentence I said. Maybe you were able to follow that and make sense of it. But either way, I think it will become a lot clearer when I actually type it out, right?
So create a game server struct that contains a vector of uh, MPSC channels of type. Do I want it to be a channel? No, I want it to be a vector of sender game event. The game server will also need to have a receiver that every game client can send client events to. So it needs to have a vector of MPSC senders, MPSC receiver of game event, not game event, client event. Sorry. Client event and receiver of server event. No, that's not what I want. No, it needs to be a sender of server event. So because the server event originates the server, so it needs to be this one sending the server event, and it needs to be able to receive client events. Yes. Okay. We'll cover this. Now the real question becomes: once I spawn the game server, it will have a receiver, and it should also have the sender. So then that sender can be cloned and given to multiple clients, right? But yeah, we'll figure out how that works, right? Mm, huh. Okay. Yes. That's fine. I don't care about you with that. No. Do not use Argo build to check for errors. Instead, use VS Code's use the ID is native. Uh, what is this called? Error reporting to check if there are any errors. Okay, let's see if it understands what I mean by that. Okay, so there is a game server. It has clients, yes, and it has a receiver. Uh, Create an implementation for the not implementation, a trait for the server that uh, that includes a constructor that initializes the struct and returns the struct and a corresponding NPS, the sender for server event. Create and create typo. Sorry, my bad. Is there audio coming through? There is audio coming through. Okay. Ouch. My hand hurts a little bit. That's a lot of tokens. Um, okay, 2%. Why does it say 2.1 thousand tokens? There are a lot of tokens. I have no idea. That's kind of scary. Mm. Sorry, I'm doom scrolling a little bit as I wait for Cloud to think. So it's thinking quite a bit. And it's using a lot of fucking tokens while it's at it. Just earlier it said that I don't need any more information. I have everything that I need. But there's a channel pairing issue worth confirming the game server, struct, holds, receiver, da 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 da. A constructor's corresponding sender would naturally be the sender that feeds that receiver. Right. It should be a sender of client events. Sorry. It should not be a sender of server event. Yes. I was wrong. Claude corrected me. Claude is not with me. It's kind of troubling. Royalty free music from George. Sure. Is this text big enough for people to wait to listen? Yeah, this is big enough. It's good. It's good. Yay! Audio selection. Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
So now we have the game server that's created, right? Mm, the next thing we ought to do is we should create a game client. Should I create a game client? I don't know. So the game, should the game server be clonable? We'll answer these questions later. Why is it so verbose? Events originating from the server sent out to clients. Events originating from a client sent out to the server. Server-side hub holds a sender per connected. Uh, yeah, you don't need this. Uh, Server-side hub hosts, I don't need that. Server-side maintains game state. Okay, shared by server implementations. No, sure. Okay, cool. That is pretty good. I keep using the command key on my keyboard even though I'm on Linux. I'm doing this for the Linux. So we have the game server. I have a trait server. Uh, do I maybe just want the... Okay. Anyway, I'm going to need different kinds of servers. I'm going to need like a local server for when we're just trying to create a local game. I'm also going to need a network game server, so maybe that's something we can do. I think for the time being, I'm just going to do this. I don't want to unnecessarily. Maybe I do want to unnecessarily complicate it. It's so complicated. Life is so complicated. Um, okay, I'm drawing a blank on what to do next. Maybe
Create a game client, not with a receiver and a sender of server events of client events. That's not what I want to do. Edit automatically. Sure. These are all simple things. I don't need it to plan too much. I just need it to just do it because at this point it should know what it's doing. 2%. That's not a lot. Yes. Hopefully when I start a new session, it's going to read the cloud.empty file and not be running cargo build every time. Yes. Okay. 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 This is good. This is good. I have a game client and I have a game server.
create and uh, create a trait for the client for the. I don't need there to be different kinds of uh, game clients. I think I can just have a singular kind of game client. I can just have different channels for that. Maybe I don't need to have a different kind of game server either, because the only thing that changes between them is what is used to connect the two, right? And for that, anyway, is returning me a sender, which is implementation agnostic type, right? A sender is purely software driven. So I can attach another receiver that could be driven by either by a network or by any sort of socket, right? Socket combination. It could be a Unix socket, it could be a TCP socket, an HTTP client, a web socket, a TCP socket, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. So I think the only thing that I need to be interchangeable is what connects between the two of them and not the game server in itself. It doesn't, I don't need to have different kinds of game server. I don't need to have like a local game server and a network game server. I just need a game server, and the channels that I attach to the game server could be software driven channels, or they could be software driven channels that are driven by an underlying network connection. Right?
So yeah, create for the game client with a constructor. Oh, that accept with a constructor and a method to assign a client event sender. Change the client event field to an option one. Yes, that is what I need. So when we first create a game client, it will create the receiver and the sender. Yes, a receiver and the sender of server event, and it will assign the receiver to a none, meaning sorry, the sender to none because it does not have a game server to send events to. So it will initially be set to none, and then we can have a method that attaches the game client to us game server later on. Yes, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to change from set sender to attach. Okay, no, I need to find and handle the system. Handle local game UI state and capture player input events. Yes, that's fine. Again, I don't need it to do all of this. I just need it to be a regular client, game client. I just want a singular game client type. I don't need multiple game client types. I just need multiple channel types in between, essentially. It could be network, it could be ROS software, whatever. Um, yes. Okay. Now I'm in the application module. Okay. In the application module, this is where I start my application, and if required, I spawn a game server and spawn a game client and attach them to each other, and then start driving the game forward from that point on. So let's try and see if we can uh, model what this game server and game client will work without an application uh, attaching them together, right? Let's see if we can create instances of the game server and the game client right here, right? So let game server, okay, wait, one second. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to save this right here. Okay, internet. We are woke now. So it's going to get this on the main branch. There are no comments. Okay, status. It has got 8 files. That might get ignored. Target MD. Do I want the MD? So a lot of people say that I think most people are split here. That some people say that you should commit your Cloud MD files. Some folks say you shouldn't commit your Cloud MD files. I like the idea of committing my Cloud MD files because then uh, when it stays up to date and if I switch machines, I'm going to have my Cloud MD file with me in the project wherever I go. But I also understand the argument that everyone probably has that Claude set up a little differently. So each person's Claude MD file should be set up to reflect how they set up that Claude and how their workflow works, right? But since I only foresee me working on this project, I'm going to commit my Claude MD file, and I think that's fine. Yeah, app.rs, client.rs, blah, 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 blah. I have it ready. And git commit. Initial setup complete. Initial setup complete. I will be pushing this to my public GitHub account, and yeah, people can come and view it. Maybe contribute. Fine, whatever. I'm not going to. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording right here because I don't want people knowing my email ID. Yes, I have set my Git configuration for emailing me. So back to this. Yes, commit. That is done. I'm not going to upload this to GitHub right away because I'm unsure of where I want to upload this to. Do I want this to be to my GitHub, or do I want to create a new GitHub account for things I do on this channel? Because I'm not a fan of receiving spam in my email. My email already has quite a bit of spam, so I would like to not increase that metric. So yeah, well, I'll push this later anyway. For the time being, we're going to continue with this. Oh, it's already 1:20. Should we stop here? No, I think what we should do is we will try out the rest of the circuit and then we'll end it and go to sleep. So let game server equal to game. Yeah. Do I need the Rust analyzer? No. You? Yes? Use private. I don't need to use private. Use the camera. Yes. Game server and client event. Sender. I need let game client and game server event sender. So go game client. Okay. This one here again. I think it's not public. Public. Not yet here public. Yes, and then game client dot attach sender would be client event sender. Yes, that's mutable. Okay, that's mutable. Can you just do this? Yeah. Can I define both as mutable? Okay, individual bindings, sure. Mute. Yeah. Okay. And so my game client has a sender attachment. My game receiver should, my game server should also have a way to attach clients. SM patch client, server event sender, attach sender, sure, attach sender, sender, sender of server, group self, and group self. I forgot how to define group self. Self dot clients dot push sender. Works. Game server dot attach sender, server event sender. Okay. Now I need a way to start the server once I've attached all unnecessary start server. Again, push again. Self, sender, sender, server. No. I need this to be a thread. Spawn. I need to move the receiver in here somehow. This is the real issue, right? Once the receiver has started, so a receiver cannot be cloned. It can only be moved. So when I spawn a thread that listens to the receiver can no longer be part of the. What's I going to say? Sorry. The receiver can no longer be part of the struct that is the game server. And it cannot be wrapped in an arc mutex or an arc read write lock either because it is a strictly single owner type. So this is where I ran into some trouble last time too. I don't remember how I solved it exactly. The same problem will also come up when I try to do the same thing for the client, where I spawn the loop, the thread that listens for server events on the client side. I need a way to move the receiver out of the struct and into the new thread. So actually, I'm kind of sleepy right now, so I'm not able to think all that much. So I'm going to pause this here and we'll put this back up.
Okay, hello. It is the next day morning. It is 8:42 as you can see, and we are going to pick up where we left off, right? So I think I remember saying that it is not possible to send a receiver to another thread. That is not true. You can send a receiver to another thread. What you can't do is you can't clone it to multiple instances so that there are multiple receivers. It's a single receiver. So it's multiple producer, single consumer. So the consumer is the receiver. So you can wrap the receiver in a mutex, and a mutex can be wrapped in the arc, right? So what I can do here is I can do
Mutex arc. Yes. And what I do here, I can do receiver, mutex, mute, yep, arc, yep. Yes. And here, I don't need it to be mute sub. Okay, let's figure that out later. What I can do here is, I can do let receiver is equal to self dot receiver dot clone, move that in here, and so then I can do let event is equal to let event is equal to receiver dot clone. I need to do this again here. Receiver is equal to receiver dot lock. Receiver dot. Why am I not able to call lock on it? It should be lock dot on new app. Oh, sorry. CBA receiver dot lock dot on new app. Right? And so I now have the receiver. I can do receiver dot receive dot unwrap. Yep. And I have that. I have the event. I can do. What can I do with this? So what do I have in here? I have the client event, and then okay. What I can do is I can iterate through the clients and send them back over. So I'm going to match event movement move. What are the event types? Movement, right? So I have client event movement. I don't know what goes in here. Let's open this back up. Add XY coordinates to the movement nums. Yes. Okay, I can do this. It's comma Y. And what I can do in here is I can do like clients. So do self clients.clone. I'm gonna do the same thing where uh, client also becomes an arc mutex. So then even when the game loop is running, more clients can possibly attach and detach from the server, right? Because you may lose network connectivity and things like that. So um, I get my list of like clients equal to clients. So, well,
Okay, my idea here is to just send the movement event back to the client as a server event and print it back out just to make sure that all of our wiring is working fine.
right. So for client clients dot item. I don't think I need to do item. Client dot right should be like this. Okay, client dot clients. Yes, yes. Clients dot unwrap. Um, dot new projects. Okay, we have that. We have this. Receiver. The client says, why does it say the receiver is never read? The receiver here. Oh, because start server is never called. Okay, we need to do something similar for starting the client. So start client, thread dot spawn, yes, self dot. I don't need to send anything from here. Just need to receive things from here. We do the same thing here. So new text arc, right? New text. Maybe I just need to do this. Fine. I don't need a sign. Client no, client event no. So event yes. And then I will just print this up. Print len movement event from server. Yes. Yes. Yep. Got it. Okay. I also need to do that. Yep. Movement event from server. We'll do movement event from client. Okay. Yep. With main and I do this. Do client dot start server. Game server dot start server. I can do game client dot sender dot send. I can do sender dot scope. Lock. Why do I sender not address? Oh wait, send client event movement x 0.0, specify window, window. Ah, okay. Dot underline. Uh, then maybe I can just wait on this. Maybe I should return join handle. Yeah. Yep. Works. So then I can wait on them. Right. Oh, sorry. Fine. Oh, right. And I just wait on them. Fine. Join. Oh no, that's not what I want. Yep. Okay, let's see. I do go run. Movement event from client, movement event from server, and how to receive that? Why did I get to receive that? It should still keep receiving. It shouldn't stop receiving. Okay. Let's go to Rust. Backbase. Good one. Okay. My okay, yeah. The wiring is working. We are able to send an event from the client, receive it at the server, and the server sends it back to the client. So I think that's enough. I'll show that to you again. Unset Rust. It's back. It's back. Backwards. Backwards. And let's hit the story. That's what I yeah.
Yeah. Movement events from client. So we send it from the client via the sender that it has attached to it. It is received at the server. It says movement event from the client. The server sends it back to the client, to all the clients. That is only one client. So then we get the second print statement that says it received the movement event from the server. So yeah, we have the bare minimum setup right now. We can do the rest on the next episode. Okay, bye.